Welcome everybody to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett, and on today's episode we have Mr. Danny May from Lingmo. Now, if you've been hearing about AI and how it's going to take over your job and it's going to do all these crazy things in the future, you do not want to miss this episode. We go into and look at what actually is AI, how is it affecting the marketplace, how is it going to affect you in your business, and of course touch on how did Danny, a plumber, go to become someone who now runs a language translation technology company in the space of not really that many amount of years. And also, how did they then get to show that at a world summit, right, with leaders of the free world? Now, if you want to check that out, this is the episode for you. And of course, if we can ever help you with your marketing, similar to how Danny grew his business with his marketing, head over to www.marketingmogul.com.au. But let's jump into the show. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, I always like to kick off the podcast with just one question, which is, Danny, if you and I were at a party and we're chatting to each other and we're having a few beers and I said, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
The go-to answer is, what we do is I founded Lingmo, and we provide real-time language translation solutions to enterprises to help them communicate with their customers.
Love that. And so tell us a little bit more. So when you say communicate with their customers, how are you guys doing the translation? Where is this happening? Is it just like an audio translation that when you're listening to something, or fill us in a little bit more on the tech side of things?
We have a few products. So I'll step back a little bit. So where the company started was we really, we founded this 6 years ago, and we were focusing on consumer products. And then we had, a couple of big wins with translation earpieces and so on. We launched them at United Nations. And we had a lot of enterprise companies come to us and say, we love your translation. We love what you can do. Can you build it into our ecosystem? And it was becoming harder and harder to do. When I say harder, it was becoming it wasn't time effective and cost effective for the enterprise. So we pivoted and really started focusing on the enterprise side. Still got our consumer products, but during COVID, no one's traveling anyway, so they kind of sort of dwindled down. And we have a range. So when we pivoted, we have a range of solutions now. So it is voice to voice. We do speech recognition, so transcription. We do text-to-text translation. Via live chat, we've got a new product that's out on Zoom now for Zoom chats. So we have, we've got chat bots, and we just tried. What we had our solutions do was enterprises, whether it's small, medium, large, to communicate with their customers, because, during COVID now, everyone's online, globalization, communication is the key for someone to buy a product or, for sustain that customer, whether it might be an airline trying to talk them in, giving them back a refund or credits. Communication is the key, and not everyone speaks the same language.
And so how do you see that affecting industries so for example, my partner runs a language school here in Perth where they teach Spanish, Italian, and French, obviously, and they do some corporate work where they train them up as well. Do you see this as almost I don't want to say the death of learning languages, but if people are going to be heavily relying on this, how are you seeing on the corporate side, are they still wanting to learn part of that language, or are they just going, don't have to now, we've got the automation to take care of it?
What we're seeing now is it's, when we first founded this, especially moving into the enterprise side, we're not trying to take jobs away from people. It's actually providing a solution, for translators, interpreters, learning a language to enhance what they got. So you're learning a language, okay, a lot of people might not be able to do it, face to face, but you may use some software in some parts and face-to-face in other parts. So it's giving them resources to be able to learn different ways and learn effectively. In the corporate sense, it's a little bit different because, say for us, for example, we're a global company and we're talking to, people in Europe, South America and, even America. There's so many different dialects and different languages there. It's hard to really hone in on one language and learn it. If we were just dealing, say, with China, then you'd learn Mandarin and go there, because that's only what you're doing. But in the corporate sense, the solutions that we're providing just gives them the ability to communicate with their customers. And then you've got corporate key accounts where those people may learn a language depending on those key clients. But it's really enabling people to communicate freely and also enhance interpreters, translators, learn a language, that's industry. to enhance, how they go to market and stuff like that. It's not about taking jobs away.
No, that's awesome. I love that. Circling back to the beginning, what made you want to then start a translation, what would now be, a translation and tech company? What was the kickoff point for you?
So what the kickoff was, I started a couple of companies in early days, photo sharing and all that, mainly thinking about the money as you do. Instagram sold to Facebook for $1 billion. I thought, okay, the iceberg effect, I thought that guy looks like he's done it easy, so I'm going to do that. But how I found Lingmo was I didn't come from the tech industry. I was a plumber. I still am on the license plumber. I pay for that every year. Just, you got your fallback sort of thing. And I was contracted to go to China to find solar hot water products and manufacture them and get them back to Australia, get them certified and install them, etc. Just 4 hours after landing in China from my first trip, my passport was stolen. And I went up to a police officer. I was in Shanghai and I downloaded a Now competitor's app and just tried something nice and simple. I just wanted to break the ice with this dude. And I just said, hello, how are you, into the translator. It actually come out in Mandarin and said, hello, I love you. And he wasn't impressed, Like, he had his hand in his gun. Just picture this guy. My colleague I was with was about 150 kilos at the time. He was running down the street. And you know how someone's running so fast with a suitcase, it looks like they got a kite behind him? That's how fast he was running. I gone, I'm in trouble here. So what actually happened was the police seen the funny side of it. Long story short, I got to where I was going and he helped me. But I come back and just really thought, how many other people in that situation, how many other people we've been put in that situation and get lost? Because, everyone's, can't communicate somewhere, whether it's, Chinatown just to get, some Chinese or while they're overseas, and you literally feel lost. So come back, and it was a big company, don't get me wrong, the company's app that I use. So just come back and really did 6 months of market research just to find out why they were so wrong. And I think it took someone outside the industry to really, think outside the box to find out. And the company, don't get me wrong, their translation was 100% accurate. What wasn't accurate was the speech recognition, which is the start of it. So then the rest of it snowballed, and that's how you got bad translation. So yeah, just come back and really thought about that and, come and had to build a product and enhanced it to where we are now.
Well, I don't want to skip over that because it's like everyone, if they're listening, they're going to be like, cool, you're a plumber. You head over to China, then you come back, you're like, yeah, we just build a product and roll it out and now it's killing it. Like, what were some of the steps in there? Because obviously, as you mentioned, coming back as a plumber, you identified there was opportunity there. What happened next for you? Because I'm going to make the assumption that you weren't able just to jump on the computer, knock up a program that could then have better speech recognition than this competitor's app.
Yeah, no, definitely could. I tried that and my attention span was so short and I just got frustrated. So I thought, no, I'm not doing that. So I guess I did make it sound a lot easier than what it was, the iceberg effect. But and it did was, come back, did the market research, went and seen some angel investors, about 40 of them. They all said no for two reasons. One, going up against the big companies. Two, you're a plumber, no tech background. So what we did was we actually sold our house and put the money into creating an MVP. Because of the projects I was working with before, I had some of the developers that I was working with out of Pakistan. So I contacted these guys and we started working through, can we do this? What can we do? And they said, yeah, let's give it a go. And that was 7 years ago. They've been with me ever since. So I self-taught myself everything I needed to know within this industry. So it's artificial intelligence and stuff, but within speech recognition and translation. Because when you say self-taught myself in AI, there's so many different things. And I just really honed in on what I needed to know. But basically what I needed to know. So with the developers, I could challenge the status quo with them. Like if I say we need to do X, Y, and Z, they go, we can do X, Y. And I'll go, well, why can't we do Z? You do this way. And it may take a little bit longer, cost a little bit more money, but let's do it that way. And I think outside the box and go, yeah, let's give it a go. And next thing you know, it works. So that's where I guess with the plumbing really helped me to what I'm doing now in tech is because when you walk into a bathroom, at a client's house, they say, I want toilet there, shower there, hand basin there, just timber. You've got to picture everything, how it's finished. So you know where to run your pipes at the start. Then you're the last person to come in. So you've got to know where your pipes were so you don't drill into them and how you got to visualize how it looks. Same with the tech. I visualize how it looks and how it has to feel. I speak with our team and they go, yeah, we can do X, Y, and Z, as I said. And then we go, okay, no worries. And then something happens and we work together. And I just, from the non-tech background, I kind of come to it as a usability side of it, as well as, functionality and stuff.
And so from there, you sold your house, you built the MVP, and then obviously to the point where you just mentioned we launched something at the UN, which is pretty epic. What were some of the big high points along the way, and what were some of the real challenging points that you hit in that process?
The challenging ones were at the start. So once I built the MVP, we sold the house and stuff. You got to know your limitations, and my limitation was commercializing the product. So I brought a partner on, and he's helped me take this company to where we are now. And then we obviously, with his connection, we brought another partner on, which helped with angel investment and investment into the company. But it was bringing them on to add value to the areas that I lacked. There's been a lot of ups and downs. I guess there's no regrets; they're all lessons. And probably the up was, the going to United Nations, and I do keynotes and do a lot of keynotes around the world. So they're a lot of the ups. I love promoting the products and promoting the company. And then I guess, another up is, we had, on the Central Coast, we had the Central Coast Mariners here, and there was a couple of Spanish guys that brought their family over, but they couldn't speak any English, and to the point where their wives didn't want to go out of the house because they were worried about communicating. So we gave them some of our hardware devices, and they, had shed a tear and all that type of stuff because they could communicate. So, that's why we really built. What we've done is to enable people to communicate. So we really focus on the product, not the money at the start, and the money will come at the end. I guess a lot of the low points is there's a lot of struggles in it. Pivoting. We had to do a couple of pivots. So from consumer to enterprise, and we had a lot of big companies come to us. So it wasn't really typical startup sense where you start with a small medium. They kind of come to us because of what we did at UN and took us to another level. But once you put all the work into those, and then next they go with big organizations, as you would know, they lose focus pretty easy. When I say that, they say, yes, I want this now, but then, okay, well, it's going to take us 3 months to build it. 3 months down the track, they go, yeah, we don't need it anymore. We've pivoted to a different way. Or they've had a reorganization. The person you're speaking to is not there anymore. So that's a lot of those challenges and low points were from that.
And what about getting into the UN? Because just get into the UN, and that was pretty good. It's like, what was the process to be able to get that and launch that there? Because I think for a lot of people, when they hear things like that, they're like that's an impressive. You can get it in front of an audience like that to share, as you mentioned, and the big enterprises like, well, hey, these guys are here. They must be good. What was the process like to get in the door there?
Well, quite lucky with that because he's one of our advisors at the start. He'd done a lot of work with the UN. So it's kind of, in a sense, it's not what you know till you know in some of these areas. And again, that's one of the lessons that I've learned is we could know everything. And if you don't know the right people, you're not going to go, I guess it's the same. It's a Silicon Valley mentality. If we're in Silicon Valley right now, we'd probably be worth $1 billion because you're in the Valley. It's not, it's all that type of side of it. So his name's Neil, and he introduced us. He does a lot of keynotes. He was one of the founding members of the AI for Good Summit, which is part of the UN initiative. And what that does is it brings the focus point of artificial intelligence giving back for good in the world. And obviously language communication is one of them. So that's how we got into the UN. And from that, I've done a couple of keynotes in Korea and stuff on panels for the UN, the ITU division. So it's the telecommunications side of it. And I guess being in the right time, right place at the right time and a lot of things. I get frustrated when I hear people say that when they've grown their business, but there is certain aspects where that is. And again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So with that, that's how I got a lot of the keynotes with that, because he was one of the founding members of that ITU division.
That's awesome, man. I think that is important for everyone to remember, because obviously, yes, you can have an amazing product, but if you can't get the product out there, it's not like, it doesn't matter how amazing it is if no one knows about it, right? You've got to get out there and market yourself and talk about it and promote. That's our big focus is obviously we do online advertising, and so many people come to us like, I've got this awesome thing, and I say it, I'm like, it is cool, but I was like, how come I don't know about it? Like, you should be getting this out there, and that's the only way to do it is to get it out there. Otherwise, you'll be the best kept secret that no one ever knows about.
Yeah, when we how we got the popularity was when we launched that earpiece at United Nations, and because we did it in collaboration with IBM, and it was quite funny because we got the the IBM logo and stuff on there, and I think we're either one of the first or the first in the world to get the IBM logo on a hardware device. The simple reason is I asked a question. I just go in and ask a question, and I'm thinking, well, what's the worst they're going to say is no. And they've actually gone, well, we've never been asked that question. We don't know. And it took about 2 months because they've never been asked. They didn't know who to get permission off. So because we did that, we did a press release. And it was quite funny because the first initial press release, the heading went out of Australian startup takes on big players in earpiece market. And it wasn't getting any traction. So then they come back and said, we want to change it to Australian plumber invents smart translation earpiece. And it went gangbusters. It literally went viral. I was in 37 of the top 40 online magazines around the world. And that's where the popularity, so that's how we got to that stage. And we were just ahead of the curve with that. Then Google come out with Google Pixel. I remember doing an interview and they said, Google Pixel come out the other day and they mentioned you in their article that they're competing against you. Are you scared? And I said, no. I said, I've got to thank Google because our sales just went through the roof because they compared themselves directly to us. So it was, you got to take, and then the big players, everyone gets scared of taking on the big players, but that's the entrepreneurship side of it. And that's the struggles you've got to overcome.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's so important. Like, number one, just asking, because most people, the reason why they don't get what they want is because they never asked for it. I remember my partner is really big on this. Like, if we go to a hotel and she doesn't like the hotel room, for me, I'm like, the hotel room that they give me is a hotel room. Yeah. For her, she's like, hang on, we were in New York. She's like, we're in front of Central Park. We can't see Central Park. Why can't they put us on a higher floor? And I'm like, well, this is our room. And no, she's like, when you call them and ask them if they have any rooms, I call them and then they're like, yeah, we can put you up on a higher floor. I'm like, oh, like I literally would never ask, but you never know unless you ask for it, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I did a keynote for IBM's Think in Vegas, and they had people up on the billboard above. I don't know if you've been to Vegas, and they've got bubblegum shrimp, that big billboard up there. They had people from IBM up there, and I'm like, oh, what's the hell? I might as well ask if I can get up there. I just went and asked. I said, because I was doing a keynote, I said, yeah, no worries. You got to go to hair and makeup tomorrow. And I'm going, what? Hair and makeup? That was a total separate thing for me. So I got the pictures done, and then I was up on the billboard for 7 days.
I think it's just amazing. And as you say, most people is like, because literally the worst they can say is no, and there's no harm. And it's like, but if you never ask, you're never going to be on the billboard above bubblegum shrimp.
But bubblegum shrimp, yeah. No, you just go with the mentality. And you go, okay, well, they're going to say no. You think, okay, no, and then they say yes. You go, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that, and you're shocked. So if any people get cranky with me because I ask a lot of questions, and that's the only way that I learn. But I do ask questions if for these type of things, and yeah, it's sometimes it pays off. Most of the times it doesn't, and that's what you got to. I've gave a few examples of where it did, but for those 3 examples, there's probably 40 that have said no.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, right, you went to all the angel investors at the beginning, and they all said no. And, there's so many stories fraught with that where it's like, you just got to keep asking. And I think it was, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, if it was I think it was like KFC and Colonel Sanders, something like that. He went to so many people, all said no. And then he managed to find the very last one, or 59th person he spoke to said yes and helped him start it up. And, now it's a powerhouse. But
I think Google was the same.
Yeah. It's for all of them, because it's like, well, it's, everyone gives up, but it's only the entrepreneurial spirit, as you said, is like that pushes through so that people can keep going. And, then eventually someone will say yes, or someone will help you line it up so it becomes different, not be exactly what you asked for. But, as you say, then you found another partner who then got you into an investor, and it always will play out somehow.
Yeah. Compromise. I guess you've got to go in there thinking, if you're headstrong and you're stuck in your way, you ain't going to go anywhere. That's the ego. They say ego is the success inhibitor, because if you've got ego and you're not willing to change or learn, then there's no point in being in a startup or an entrepreneur. So
true. And so obviously, being that you have so much exposure to the AI space, and you've mentioned how it's affected business during these period recently and whatnot as well. What are you seeing or projecting over the next couple of years? Because I know some people, as soon as AI started coming out, they're talking about, like all this stuff's going to take over, and all these jobs are going to be lost and blah, 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 which, in some cases, not that they will be lost, certain tasks and aspects will be replaced, because obviously we have to automate and scale and grow and improve, what everyone does. But is there anything that you're seeing or predicting to see come out in the next couple of years, that thinking and looking at like small, medium businesses, even in your space with translation and speech recognition, is there anything that you're seeing that kind of really excites you, that you think is going to have a really good positive effect coming up?
In relation to AI, I think you just touched on it then, and I mentioned it before. AI, I think the people that are scared are the ones that sort of spreading a lot of stuff of it's taking over my job. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's automating a lot of things, which it's there to help and assist people, not take their jobs away from them. Albeit some people, some jobs may be taken, but that's where people, skill up. So there's that. I only watched it the other day, or watched part of it. There was a movie from IBM when the first man went to the moon, and they brought the big IBM supercomputer in, and they had all the ladies doing the calculations and stuff. So they were scared then when IBM bought that computer and it was going to take their jobs. But what they did was they reskilled so they realized that they had to feed information to the computer. Same thing with AI. It's the initial scare side of it. What really excites me moving forward is the 5G. So we're doing work with Telefonica, Intel, and Emilia Hotels in Spain for the 5G on the edge. So that kind of stuff really excites me, because we're working on software where you just pick up the phone, voice over IP, and you're speaking, but you're speaking to someone in a different language, and you have literally no idea that they're speaking a different language. What limits us now is the latency and the time, because where we've got it is sort of like an old school international phone call. But with the 5G on the edge, the latency issues that will far increase the speed and make it more real time. So for us in our industry, that's what kind of excites us. But I think in a lot of industries, the 5G and the network capability is just going to improve things. Look, you've got, your Teslas that are auto drive, self-drive and all that type of stuff. So again, it's just those things moving forward, becoming at a more rapid space is, I think, where I see it going. And it's kind of is exciting, because again, it's exciting for people in the space and scary for people that aren't. But, for your listeners and stuff, it shouldn't be. If you're not in the space, there's nothing to be scared of. You just got to sit there and think, okay, what in my industry can be automated? And pretty much what can be automated is where the AI is going to help in. You're still going to have a human touch at some point. Computers can't just run around and rule the world. They've got to have some human input for daily tasks. And I think that's all a big key point is.
And that's so important. And I know, so we do a bit of stuff with messenger chatbots on Facebook and Instagram. And everyone, when they were looking at it, I was like, cool. Like the word bot as well, especially in that space, sometimes gets a little bit, people freak out because of people using them negatively in other areas. But I was like, it's just a little bit of automation. All it is automating this task. So as you mentioned, there's still got to be a point where they want to speak to a human, and same even with AI, it's like AI can't work out a strategy. It can tactically do something, it can calculate something, it can automatically respond to something, but it's not going to work out the big picture strategy that you've got to, as you say, plug into the AI so that it can do what it needs to do.
Yeah, and I think the good one there, because we do stuff with, when I say we do stuff with chatbots, people have chatbots, they train it, we add the language in front of it, so they train in one language and we have their chatbot communicate in 80 languages. So that's where we add value to that. And again, you've got the live chat side, but also on the back end of the chatbot, everyone, it's taking the small menial tasks off people so they can work on the more complex ones that, retail, say Myer or somewhere like that, and they're asking, do you have a shoe color in red? The bot can go, yes, we have a red, where that will take up someone's time to say, yes, we have a red, where they can go, I want a refund, and that's where the person can come in. But also to add to that is those chatbots need to be trained. They don't just come out of the box ready to go. You've got to continually train them. So if, yes, they say for Myra, for example, they have a red shoe today. Tomorrow they may not have a red shoe, it may be blue, and they've got to train it to learn the questions for blue shoes. So there's always human interaction at some point.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to understand. It's like, they're not going to, computers aren't taking over, guys. It's just that hopefully making things a lot easier for everyone. And now as we get towards the end of our time together, I always like to ask this question to every guest that we have on, which is there any question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, not really. I do a lot of podcasts and I think we've pretty much covered most of the questions. I guess, for the entrepreneurial side, we've gone through how I did it and stuff. So I guess probably maybe one of the questions would be, and I'll kind of answer it now, is especially for someone like myself that come from a different industry to tech, I'll get asked a lot of questions, especially around how you find angel investors or investment into it, or what you should be giving people. Do you know what I mean? Around that mindset. And I get a lot of questions asked, from younger sort of, when I say younger, it makes me feel old, but younger, entrepreneurs starting out and the advice is, how much equity or something should they give away in a project? And it's obviously what you're comfortable in giving away is one, but two, like me in the early days, you can't do everything. You need to, and 9 times out of 10, when you're starting a company, you cannot afford to pay someone to bring it on to add the value. So you've got to, yes, you might put 50, 100K into it and you go, well, this is my baby. I want to give you 2% because I put 100K and you're doing nothing. You don't look at it like that. You look at it, what value are they going to add? Because if you have a good example of this is, Eric, the founder of Zoom, he owns I think it's 22 or 25% of Zoom, because he's brought people in, investors and stuff like them, where they put the money in, but they add the value as well. So to have 25% of something that's worth $100 billion now to 100% of something that's worth 100K, you've got to sort of weigh it up and just, be realistic in a lot of things. And then that's where the compromise comes in.
That's so important that you mentioned there. It's like that. You can have 100% of something worth 100K, or you can have a smaller piece of something so much bigger. And if you do find the right people that add that value, it's so important, I think. And now, Danny, for anyone that's been listening and they said, cool, I want to find out a bit more about what you're up to, everything that's going on in the translation world and whatnot, where's the best place for people to connect online and to find out more about what you guys are up to?
The best way to find out about our products and what we're doing is go onto our website, lingmointernational.com. If they've got any questions or want to follow me and stuff, the best place is LinkedIn. That's where I do a lot of my stuff on there. And that way you can, if you've got questions about entrepreneurship, you can just, friend me and send me a message and have conversations to help out. But yeah, if you have general information about your products, it's lingmointernational.com. But we don't just cater for large companies. We do, corner shops, small, medium businesses that have an issue, whether it's voice, text, or whatever it may be, translation. We've got a solution that can fit your needs.
Amazing. So guys, wherever you are, you'll be able to click around and see in the show notes, or click through to the website and we'll have all the links there, links to Danny's LinkedIn profile as well. And if you like this episode, please make sure that you subscribe so that you can hear these episodes when they drop before anyone else. And Danny, thank you so much again for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.